Happy Wednesday, everybody, and welcome on into Pedone My Take. I'm your host, Nick Pedone, hanging out with you guys for the next hour or so. Today is July 29th, and the NBA returns to action tomorrow. Today is also National Chicken Wing Day. I had some Wingstop myself a little bit earlier today. Wingstop, not a sponsor of the show quite yet, but hey, we're trying to get them on board here. Really good wings today. Well, we got a good one for you today, guys. We're going to be joined by NBA champion Scot Pollard to get you guys ready for the NBA return. I'm going to get mad at the Miami Marlins organization as well as Major League Baseball because what else is new? I'm going to give you all my takes on all the trends in sports. How about those Cleveland Indians, huh? Let's get right into this because last week I told you guys to hop on this bandwagon. I told you guys to get excited for this Cleveland Indians team. And guess who is right? I was right. The Indians are off to a red-hot start. They're going on right now. Need a little bit of bat magic going on here tonight, but that's okay. They're going to pull through. Currently 4-1 to start the season for the Tribe. That's the equivalent to 11-3, folks. I'll take my odds. Let's talk about this, right? This is something that I really wanted to start the show off with, is Terry Francona playing a little bit of 4D chess with us this weekend. Obviously, we had the rain delay to start this series up against the Chicago White Sox. And Terry Francona said, you know what? I got a move for you. Friend of the show, Adam Plutko, went ahead and started that game so Zach Plesac could pitch tonight. And I know what you're thinking. That's just a small manager move. Wanted to get Plutko some action. We haven't seen him yet out of the bullpen. But how about this? Up next, the Cleveland Indians are going to face another team that's pretty hot right now in the Minnesota Twins, a division rival. And at the top of the order, they're going to have Shane Bieber, Carlos Carrasco, as well as none other than Mike Clevenger ready to go to face those Minnesota Twins on the road in Minnesota. Terry said, give me that rain delay again, and I'm going to come back stronger than ever. And I love that move by Francona. Something that's bothered me, though, with him, I have this jotted down here in my notes, is he's got to pull that mask over the nose there, Terry. The corona could still get up in those nostrils if you don't have it, over the nose. It needs to be all the way up in there. Man, but the Tribe pumping into we haven't talked. We haven't talked since the opener. 5 games have gone by, 6 being tonight. I love that they're pumping some crowd noise in. I've watched a few other Major League Baseball games where they're not pumping crowd noise in, and we talked about this a little bit last week with Adam Plutko, how it benefits the hitters when there's no crowd noise because they can hear the catcher either sliding in, whereas now the Tribe have pump some crowd noise in. It just makes it seem much more natural, and I like that a lot more versus no crowd noise. And I know I've seen some tweets and I've heard some people say already, like, I wish I could hear what the players are saying. Like, I want to hear the F-bombs. I want to hear the S-bombs. Like, I want to hear all of that. I mean, some of that still bleeds through the broadcast, but even then, if there was no crowd noise, the FCC is still all over that. You're still going to get hit with the silent dump button when one of those guys curse. So I like the much more natural crowd noise. I like that the Tribe has the drum. I've heard that. I haven't heard any Jose chants, but like the Mario coin when they score, it's all been phenomenal. The music in between innings, I'm a huge fan of that, and I definitely wanted to start off giving the Tribe some props with that. Cardboard cutouts. We talked about this a little bit on Monday on Big Play Reflog. If you haven't checked that out, make sure to go check that out. We talked a little bit about the cardboard cutouts. Man, that needs some work. The cardboard cutout department at Progressive Field, you guys got to step your game up. They're a little too scattered around, and I said on the Big Play Reflog when I was filling in as well, are the Tribe trying to be woke on us? Are they trying to, tell us something that we don't already know and that isn't constantly being shoved down our throats all the time? The cardboard cutouts don't need to be socially distant. I think that's what they're trying to do. And they're 6 feet away from each other out there down the first and third base line. It doesn't need to be that way, man. Pile them boys in. Let those season ticket holders, be represented at these games. Stack them on top of each other. Throw masks on them if you really need to. And let's fill that stadium up with some cardboard cutouts. It looks so weird having them all helter-skelter around. And also, John Adams isn't down the third base line. We need to get John Adams up there in the bleachers where he belongs. Other than that, though, all jokes aside, that's just a little nitpicky thing. I love what this tribe has been able to do. Like I said, the chunk of the pitching rotation is going to be rocking and rolling, ready to go for the Minnesota Twins. Obviously, a big series in a 60-game, season. All these games count. We hear that time and time again. It's a sprint, not a marathon. So I'm glad to see that Francona found a way to jitter with this lineup once again and to get these guys to give us our best chance here. I'm going to bring you guys Scot Pollard. I know that's what everybody's really waiting for. That's what I'm really waiting for. But first, I need to mention that Pedone My Take is presented by BigPlay.com. Big Play is your home and go-to for live sports talk just about every night of the week. You're going to want to check out all the great shows that we got going on. I mentioned it before, the Big Play Reflog Show with Chris McNeil. You guys all follow him, Reflog_18. He's got some great takes. I know he's got the jokes on Twitter, but he's got some great takes, as well as Moving the Chains with Peyton Hillis, brand new show that just launched, just like this one. Make sure to follow them on Twitter at BigPlay_com. You're never going to miss a show. Without further ado, here he is, NBA champion, former Cleveland Cavalier, former Boston Celtics, Sacramento King, Indiana Pacer, Scot Pollard. So joining me now on the Big Play Hotline is NBA champion Scot Pollard. Scott, thanks for joining the show. How's this quarantine been for you?
Well, I'm a real estate broker now, so in Indiana we were deemed necessary or whatever the terminology is. So I've been busy working, and I found out very quickly that a lot of people are redefining the way they want to live their lives, whether it's a bigger house or be more in the suburbs or rural area. So business has been very busy for me, so that while I feel for all of the people that have really struggled, I do feel very fortunate that during this quarantine I've been busy.
So what's that like, working in the real estate world? You're obviously a bigger guy. Do people kind of freak out when they see you, or is it just kind of normal interactions there?
There's more people thus far in my real estate career are fans of Survivor, and they're like, "You're that Survivor guy," more than, "Oh, you're that NBA guy," because I've been retired for a lot longer than I've been since Survivor. So some people that are, typically it's older people that are like, "Hey, you're the NBA guy," and then there's most of it, and it's true, most people are like, you're a huge guy. Like, they don't know me from basketball or Survivor. They're just like, "You're a huge man. What did you used to play basketball or football or something?" I've gained a lot of weight, so most people think I used to play football because I'm like 300 pounds now. So.
Okay, so we'll get into the Survivor stuff in a second, but you did play 11 seasons in the league, 506 games total. However, 0 of them were played with Mickey Mouse in attendance at Walt Disney World. What were your initial thoughts on the whole bubble experiment?
Well, I do have something that kind of compares to the bubble experiment in that my second year in the NBA, there was a lockout. And
right.
So nobody was allowed to practice. Nobody was allowed to play with each other legally. There were some people that got together, and you tried to do your best to get in shape. But then when it started up, it was that shortened season of '99. And it was a very short training camp and rushed right into the season. Now, the reason that's similar to the bubble is it's the rushing back in, right? Like some teams, it's rumored that LeBron and the Lakers were having practices the whole time. Fine. But there's zero substitute for being in NBA shape. So my concern as they go into this is the fact that they're going maybe, 5, 6 regular season games after a few warm-up games, and then they're going to the playoffs.
Right.
That's why there's a training camp. That's why there's preseason games, and then the regular season, and then the playoffs. It takes you a very good month to get in NBA shape. I don't care if you're in shape. NBA shape is a different level. And so while I hope I'm very, very wrong, I hope that I'm wrong, I am very concerned that there's going to be a lot of injuries, because that's what happened during our shortened season. A lot of guys came back thinking they were in shape. They were out of shape. They were overweight. And I was one of them. I lost 30 pounds in about 25 days when that lockout ended and we started practicing again. And it could be why Detroit traded me. I might have come back and they were like, "Whoa, Porky Pie, get the hell out of here," So they traded me to Atlanta. Atlanta didn't want me. They just wanted rid of Christian Laettner's contract. So back to right now, again, I hope I'm wrong, but my concern is that they're rushing back in disregarding completely the COVID angle, just strictly from you're going from a week or two of practice and practice games, and it's the playoffs. You don't get to rest your star player during the playoffs. You know, when the preseason, it's like, oh, LeBron's only going to see 25, 30 minutes tonight, maybe. But these practice games is the only chance they have to ease them in, and it's just not enough time, in my opinion, again, to get players in real NBA basketball playoff shape. And so, again, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope there's a way that the players figure it out and the coaches and teams figure out, like, okay, we are going to ease minutes in. Even though it's playoffs, we got to figure it out, because the last thing you want is your $25, $30 million man going down with crazy injury because of the shortened comeback to the bubble.
For sure. And it's also pretty crazy times, you know, with all the rules and regulations, with the quarantine stuff. I mean, you could just ask Lou Williams about that. I'm not sure if you've seen that whole hot wing strip club fiasco. What did you kind of make of all?
And Porzingis just forgot. Like, what? This is so dumb. It's so dumb. There are, and I looked at the CDC website yesterday. Since February to July 22nd, it's about 5.5% of all of the, according to the CDC, 114,000-ish deaths from COVID. It's about 5% of them are between the ages of 0 and 50. I don't think the NBA players really have a whole lot to worry about. That's all I'm saying. Like, you're some of the healthiest people in the world with access to the best doctors in the entire planet. I don't think they really need to be testing them every day. Now, I understand there's a protocol that they're following because it's the NBA, but I think it's dumb. I absolutely think it's incredibly stupid for the healthiest people in the world to be concerned about a virus that is killing 5%. Let's say it's 5% of the 114,000. This is CDC. I'm not making this up. You can Google it, look it up, CDC website. Between 0 and 50. 5% of them, 5% of the deaths are between 0 and 50. I think the NBA is going to be okay. Now, are they going to get it? Are they going to get infected? Absolutely. Are they going to die? No. And again, I hope I'm right. I hope nobody gets injured. I hope nobody dies. And if they do, I'm going to look stupid. But I'm willing to take that risk based on what we've seen from the CDC in America so far.
So you're doing some research with the CDC. I've done some research with DoorDash.com. And the wings that Lou Williams actually got are on DoorDash, so he didn't have to go there. Now, here's my question for you. Is there any wings in the world that are worth you sitting in your bedroom 14 days after you're eating them with no outside contact with the rest of the world?
I've had some really good wings. I've had really, really good wings. In fact, Cleveland story. I used to order Quaker Steak and Lube wings on occasion pre-game.
From the stadium.
Pre-game! I would be like, you know what? I can use a little protein pre-game. I'm not going the hottest because I do need to make it through the game. but I would order some of those Quaker Steak and Lube. Like, I love wings. But at the same time, when those protocols are in place, the rules are in place. Lou, come on, man. Porzingis, come on, man. How do you forget? It's a simple thing. Just go in, get tested, and move on with your day because it's pointless anyway. I get it. But the punishment, which is so ridiculous, 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever it is, in quarantine for missing a test, for crossing over the boundary, for going over for DoorDash or whatever it is, it's all silly. It's all silly. But at least, hey, man, you're in the bubble. Follow the rules. Enjoy it. You're still an NBA player. There's only been about 3,500 NBA players ever. Enjoy it.
So you were one of those guys. You spent a big chunk of your career with the Sacramento Kings, who are currently in the bubble. They got an outside-type chance. They're a lot younger team than some of the other teams in the West that are up top. What do you think a team that's so young like that, what are their odds in all this?
You know, if you just look at the team on paper and the youth, I think, again, taking into account all the things I've talked about, right? Mm-hmm. Young guys get shape faster. So taking into account all of those things, you would think, okay, a young team that happens to make it into the playoffs might have a chance of knocking off, say, the Lakers or an older team because they got in shape quicker. They're younger. But that franchise lately has just they cannot do anything right. They can't do one stupid thing right. Every single thing they do, they seem to mess it up. And I know it's a trite phrase in the social media age, but it's a dumpster fire. And I just don't understand how they can have such bad luck. They cannot figure it out. They can't get it going. I love Vlade. I was teammates with him the whole time I was there. I love Peja, the assistant GM. I love a lot of the people that are still involved with the organization. But, I mean, they just I don't get political, okay? But I do have to say, they just fired a guy for saying all lives matter because he's 61 years old and he happens to believe that all lives matter. He was not trying to make a political statement. It was just a response to DeMarcus Cousins, and he got fired over it. And I'm sitting there going, this guy's been in the community for 32 years. He's put a lot of kids that aren't his through college, and you fired him. Okay, fine. And that franchise is starting to become very, very socially active. Great. But nobody cares if you're not winning basketball games. I'm sorry.
Right.
Nobody cares if you're not winning basketball games. So do I think they have a chance to knock off? I hope they do. I really do. I still root for them. They still have my heart. But at the same time, it's a broken heart because everything they do seems to turn into garbage. And I will fully admit that I predicted Marvin Bagley to be a steal in the draft. I thought he was going to be way better in the NBA than he was in college. And he hasn't quite turned out yet. Is it injuries? Is it confidence? Is it really that he just wasn't that good? I don't know. And he might turn into it. But I thought for sure with his skill set, he was going to be great. And I was wrong about that so far.
So speaking of that bubble, one of the greatest NBA players of all time is in there. During your 1 year in Cleveland, what was it like playing with LeBron James?
It was a long time ago. He was only, I think, 22, 23 years old at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There was about 5 or 6 of us that kind of slammed together to try to get some leadership on that team. And the problem with that was David Wesley, myself, Zydrunas even, who was a starter on and off, whether he was healthy or not. And then Daniel Marshall, we're sitting there and we're kind of role players, us less than Zydrunas, but the guys that were over 30 were sitting there at the end of the bench and we're trying to give leadership. We're trying to be locker room guys. But at the same time, the problem was LeBron's on the court. And you can only do so much from the end of the bench. If you're not playing significant minutes, nobody in the world's going to listen to you. You're not going to be like, hey, LeBron, you need to do this. You haven't played in 3 games, man. Like, what are you going to say to him? So even at 22, 23 years old or whatever, it's very difficult to be a mentor to somebody that's played 48 minutes a game. And as we all knew at the time, even then, that he had a chance to be one of the all-time greats. So he was a great teammate. My critique is I wish he was a better leader at that point. But again, 22, 23 years old with all these old heads on the back, on the roster, he's sitting there going, hey guys, why don't you guys do some of the leading? And we're sitting there going, we've been around that. We've been around some of the best players. We've been on some of the teams with some of the best players in the world. And we know it doesn't work that way. We can't bark at you from the end of the bench because then you tune us out like a bad coach, right? So
For sure.
We did what we did and we did what we could. And still, he dragged us all the way to the NBA Finals. I'm Uncle Rico when it comes to the NBA Finals. If you've ever, you're too young. You don't know what Napoleon Dynamite is, but it's an old movie. And there was a movie called Napoleon Dynamite, and there was a character in that movie, Uncle Rico, who was like, man, if Coach would have put me in the fourth quarter, we would have totally taken state. And that's me when it comes to the NBA Finals, because leading up to the NBA Finals, I hadn't been playing a whole lot in the playoffs. I was spot minutes. But then we were playing the San Antonio Spurs in the finals, right. And Mike Brown had known from here in Indiana when he was assistant coach here and my whole career, I did pretty well against Tim Duncan. I did a pretty good job of frustrating the hell out of that kid. And I call him a kid, we're the same age. But so leading into it, Mike Brown was like, Scott's going to play. I know he hasn't been, but I was on the starting 5. I'm in the rotation of like, okay, we're going to play. Game 1, game 2, 0 minutes. I'm livid. I'm like, we're getting swept, and you're not even playing me, and we plan on. So I don't know what happened there, but I will say that I don't think we would have got swept if I'd have played significant minutes in that series because Uncle Rico, if Coach would have put me in, we totally would have taken the NBA playoffs.
All right, there you go. We made a little bit of news on this podcast. The Cavs would not have gotten swept if Scot Pollard would have been in there to harass Tim Duncan. I like that.
Superstar big man, and I really think that we could have gotten at least one game had I played some significant minutes against him.
So when you were here, like you said, LeBron was super young, but at the same time, you have to have at least some sort of really cool, really unique, really funny LeBron James story. You have your own Cleveland story about the Quaker Steak, which has since been like minimized. It's a lot smaller now than what it used to be at the old Quicken Loans Arena. Now that they've kind of done some renovations, yeah, it's a little different. What's your best LeBron story, though?
Well, the best one I can't say. And
Okay, that's fair.
there's locker room stories that we don't share.
Yeah, that's fair.
But, it really was just every day that LeBron would stay after practice. And I only had a handful of players that did this. Paul Pierce was another one, because I played with Paul in college as well as the NBA in Boston. Excuse me. And LeBron always wanted to stay after and play pickup against whoever, because he wanted to play different position people. Like he'd stay after and be like, Z, you want to play, or Scott, you want to play, or Anderson Varejao, who's young. He would always often play against Anderson to learn post moves and this and that. So I guess my best story for LeBron is his work ethic was very evident at that age, that he did want to get better at everything. And it didn't matter if it was half-court shots after practice to get out of whatever, to get out of running, or to just leave, to get the bus, whatever. He was a hell of a competitor, and you could see early on in his career he was going to be one of the all-time greats.
A lot of people have brought up the MJ versus LeBron debate. You're in one of the rare hodgepodges of players that have played against both of those guys. Who's the GOAT, Scott?
Wilt Chamberlain.
Okay, tell me why.
Well, if you look at the records, it's absolutely ridiculous. Wilt had 323 games consecutive 40-point games. The next is I think Jerry West, Oscar Robertson. I mean, it goes, and they're in the 30s or 40s. Right. Wilt destroyed the game. And I think the way it was called back then versus the way it's called now, I think Wilt would even be more dominant, because the man was a fast human being. He was an all-time freak. So I could go on for an hour about Wilt Chamberlain's dominance and how I think he would dominate even more today. But if you want to narrow it to just Michael Jordan and LeBron, I will say this. If LeBron was Michael Jordan, we would have won. And that's nothing against LeBron. It's just that Michael wasn't afraid, no matter how old he was, it seemed. And again, I never played with Michael, but I played against him a couple of times. It seems that no matter how old he was, he always demanded the best out of his teammates. He never cut anybody slack. He was always telling people what to do. And that's a leadership quality that at the time I was playing with LeBron, he didn't have. Now, he may have that now. He looks like he does. But again, I haven't played with him for 15 years. So 13 years. But so if you're narrowing it down to those two, I'd still give it to Michael, because Michael dragged whoever he went with. Whoever, they went to the championship. Have you heard of Steve Kerr if it weren't for Michael Jordan? Would you have heard of Paxson? Would you have heard of Bill Cartwright, Bill Wennington, Luke Longley? I mean, Scottie Pippen even, I think, owes his Hall of Fame career to Michael Jordan. I don't think, and in fairness, and I love LeBron, okay? Don't get me wrong, I love LeBron. But in fairness, has LeBron ever made anybody else a Hall of Famer? Has he ever made anybody else a household name? He's always joined teams that already have great players, except for his time when I was with him in Cleveland, when it was like, if LeBron, again, this is big boy basketball, right? We're talking about the best of the best, so there's no time to be friendly. If LeBron was Michael Jordan, everyone knows who Boobie Gibson is right now. And
that's
do you know
fair.
who that is?
Oh, yeah, I know who Boobie is. But that's
Cleveland was our first-round pick, that 06-07 season. And Daniel was an amazing shooter. And I think had he been able to been around a stronger character with the talent of LeBron, I think everybody would have known who Boobie Gibson is. And I think Damon Jones benefited from LeBron's attracting talent, attracting double teams and triple teams. Here's the thing, though, is I think LeBron is so dominant offensively one-on-one, I think he just attracts attention, which leaves people open. Michael was so dominant, he made sure that he attracted attention in order to kick it out to people. He wasn't ever scared to pass it to somebody because he yelled at him all week, "You better make that shot if I give it to you." And so I think that's the difference. It's just a mentality thing. I think the skill-wise, I think LeBron is much more talented and much more dominant physically. And one-on-one, I don't think that there's probably ever been or going to be a more dominant one-on-one player than Wilt Chamberlain, and LeBron's second.
All right, that's fair. So you do have your own ring with the Celtics after the departure with the Cavs, but what was it like for you as a former Cavalier in 2016 when they finally did it, a game that so many people remember?
Well, I was really happy for him. When I left Cleveland, I didn't really want to leave, but it ended badly for me. I had a little issue with the GM at the time, and that was me just being at the end of my career, and I was just like, not my thing. And then I didn't really want to go to Boston. I went to Boston. And I remember writing a note to Dan Gilbert saying, when LeBron left, I said, hey, I'm around. I'd love to be in the front office. I'd love to help you win a championship without the guy that, just bailed on his team, his franchise, his city, his home state. And so I kind of got caught up in the F him. He left. He could have stayed there and been great and dragged that franchise to greatness. But still, I easily forgive. I don't hold grudges. So when he came back and he got that ring, I was very happy for him. I was very happy for the city of Cleveland, very happy for the franchise, and so very happy for everyone involved, and really glad that he was able to bring one back to Cleveland.
So I'm not sure how close you follow the Cavs now, but in your own words, like the Kings, they're a little bit of a young dumpster fire, not that exciting to watch. What's your advice, I guess, to a young, dumb, idiotic team like that just can't seem to do anything right?
It's really hard in a small market, to be fair. When you're not Chicago, New York, Miami at all, the Lakers, Clippers, when you can spend all kinds of money and still make money,
right?
There's a lot less pressure. In small markets, Cleveland is a small market. You have to get lucky with a LeBron and hope he stays. Look at Giannis up in Milwaukee. Guy has said, I'm staying here. I want to make the Bucks great. And Tim Duncan is another example of that, years from my era. And so when you're in a small market, it's so hard to get lucky with a draft pick that is A, the kind of talent that can take you to a new level, B, wants to stay there and probably make less money overall, and C, be a good person in the community that people want to go see them play and be successful. So it's such a catch-22. There's so many things. So what I always say in small markets, like, you know what? Either as a general manager and franchise, you have to gamble and just go buy some veterans and blow the cap, which is what Sacramento did when I was there. They blew the cap. The Maloofs bought the team and said, we're going to go get some people. We got Chris Webber, Vlade Divac, made a bunch of moves, and we got competitive real quick. You either have to do that or, like I said, you have to get lucky with a draft pick that is a superhuman, that is a Tim Duncan, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo. You have to get lucky with a guy like that wants to stick around. So right now, what can I say to the Cleveland Cavaliers? All I can say is good luck. Good luck.
Yeah.
There's nobody on that team that's going to be a LeBron James. It's going to be the guy that brings that team to the next level. So it's time to make some changes.
That's fair. That's definitely fair. So after your retirement, you did have a stint in your own type of a bubble when you were on Survivor. Talk to me, what was that like, and how much of reality TV is actually real? I feel like that's a big question that a lot of people want to know.
Well, first of all, the surviving part for our season, and I've heard things about other seasons where they get rice or they get water or they get certain things taken care of. I know one season that was in Africa, they kind of started making their shelters for them.
Okay.
And then they made them, they filmed them finishing the shelters off. But the reason was there were wild animals nearby. And they were like, we can't risk the lives of our cast members if they don't get a shelter built, right? So I heard that about one season in Africa. Our season, we got nothing. We built our own shelters. We didn't get rice. We didn't get water. We were supposed to boil it. We couldn't get a fire going. I lost 46 pounds in my 28 days in the game. And I'm, 28 out of 39. The surviving part for our season was 100% legitimate. Even though I went through casting and all that stuff, I still thought when I got there was going to be a time where they would be like, cut, here's a coffee. No, I didn't have coffee. There was nothing. Like the surviving part was real. Now, as far as what you see on TV, I give speeches about this now. I give motivational speeches once in a while to corporations and teams and, middle schools, high schools, whatever. And part of what I say is I incorporate this Survivor mentality of every episode of Survivor is about 40 minutes minus the 20 minutes of commercials. And every episode is about 72 hours of real life on the island. So when you are filmed for almost 24 hours a day, and I don't go into that tangent, but there's certain times where we're not being filmed, but we're not allowed to talk during those times, so nothing really happens.
Right.
But so let's say it's about 72 hours of your life that you live. Have you done something stupid? Have you done something smart? Have you said something you've regretted? Have you said something that was funny? Have you been, all of the emotions, happy, sad, angry? And they get all that footage, and they get to edit you the way that makes the best television. So some people sign up for Survivor, and they don't realize that going in. I realized going in, as soon as I saw the other tattooed guy, and it was Jason on my season, he's covered in tattoos, he's got a beard. I'm like, well, I guess we're the villains, because everybody else was really good looking, right? And so we're just like, all right. And just unknowingly, never spoke, we automatically knew. Now, did we play it up? On occasion. Did we mean to be villains? No. We're the only people on that island that had wives and children that we were playing for. Everybody else was either single or their kids were adults, and they, or they just didn't, care much. And so when people say, is it real? Yes, it's real. And I said and did everything I said and did on the show. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that was more my personality of fun, telling jokes, telling stories, singing that you didn't see 1 second of because of the way my character was being edited to make better TV. Do I have any regrets? Absolutely not. The separation between my wife and I for almost 7 weeks. As soon as I got my phone back in LA when we landed from Cambodia, I called her and I said, we're having a baby. So I have a 4-year-old son now as a result of my time on Survivor. I will never regret it. Would I ever go back? No.
I don't blame you there. So many people now say that the NBA has gotten softer. So many, old heads kind of complain like, oh, I don't watch it anymore. It's too soft for me. Is there any current NBA player that could survive Survivor?
No.
All right, that's fair.
And when you got guys, and as we've just said, we were talking about Lou, going to get wings, and Porzingis forgetting. Like, there's none of that. You don't get to do that when you're in Survivor. Again, that's not really life or death. They're watching out for you, right? There's rules though, and you have to follow the rules. If you can't even be smart enough to follow the rules, you're gonna get voted out. You have to. They're just like, bye. You're too stupid to exist here. And I'm not calling NBA players stupid. All I'm saying is I was one of them, and from what I've seen, I can't think of one player in the NBA right now that would be like, oh yeah, I'd go on Survivor and just deal with it. All the tweets and posts I've seen about, oh my God, this hotel sucks.
Right, try living out in the wild. Yeah. So during your time in Cleveland, again, I got to get to this. This is my last one here. There's this crazy, bizarre story, and I know you've explained this on other occasions as well, where you look dead down the barrel of the camera and you say, kids do drugs. Obviously, it's an inside joke, but go ahead and explain it to anybody that hasn't heard the backstory behind all that. What was up with that?
I have lots of friends that are now that are actual professional traveling comedians, and once in a while they'll be like, man, I wish I had a joke that lasted 13 years. The people kept repeating every time I'd make a public statement. They're like, hey, remember that joke you said? That was very clearly a joke. I have children, had children back then. Never failed a drug test in the NBA, and was tired of seeing teammates fail drug tests a lot. And they're going to anti-drug message meetings where it's like, oh, they're going to go talk to the kids about not doing drugs. I'm like, you never pass drug tests, and they have this guy. And so that's all that was boiling my mind. But at the same time, even back to college, I went to Kansas. We were on TV quite a bit. And there was always the guy at the end, under the basket during a timeout. He'd be like, hey, Scott, the guy in Missouri, the guy in the trucks from Missouri, say something. And so I'd say a awful joke about Missouri and how this or that about Missouri, And so I've done that my whole career. And honestly, what happened was the light was off on the camera, and he was like, "Hey man, say something." So I was just like, "Hey kids, do drugs," because I thought it was for the guys in the truck.
Right.
But I never walked it back. I never apologized, and I never will, because it was obviously a joke. And that's what it was. That's what it was meant to be. And what I know for sure is the reason that it's stuck around is because this was pre-social media being the way it is now.
Yeah.
So when you Google Scot Pollard, that pops up. Now, I've said other stuff that I think is way more controversial since, whether it was on Survivor or just on my own social media pages. But because of the way social media is now and the outrage culture, it gets squashed and nobody ever really pays attention to it because there's just so much stuff and it just cycles through so quickly. So you kids have it lucky. You can say all kinds of dumb stuff and it's just going to get swept under the rug because there's just always the next thing to be upset or outraged about. But when you Google me, that always pops up because it's like pre-social media outrage. Everything is going to be something that's just rolled over like, oh, he said that, but no big deal. In fact, I was playing golf earlier today and somebody was like, "Hey, what was that thing you said the first time you were broadcasting for the Pacers?" And it was, I think, way worse. But nobody ever talks to me about that. Like the first night I was doing a pregame show for the Pacers and they were like, "Scott, welcome to the show. It's my first time." They were like, "How do you feel?" I was like, "Excitement abounds, mostly in my pants." I thought that was hilarious. But I didn't last through the whole season. That was the season I cut it short because I got called to go to Survivor. But they didn't ask me back after the season was over. And I think that was a big reason why. It was my first time on TV. And they're like, "Whoa, did you mean to say that?" I was like, "Yeah, it was a joke. What?" And I think that was way worse than "Hey, kids, do drugs." But swept under the rug because it was many years later. Social media is the way it is now.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think I've said and done things that are far more controversial for certain people, especially as conservative as the NBA tries to be, that, I don't regret anything. I know who I am, and my family knows who I am, and I love everybody in my family and my circle, and even a lot of people outside my circle. So if people are willing to keep bringing that up and say, "Oh, my God, he said, 'Hey, kids, do drugs,' and they think I was being serious," well, you don't have a sense of humor.
For sure. So, Scott, thanks so much for joining the show today. Where can everybody go give you a follow for a little bit more of that sense of humor of yours?
Well, on Twitter, I'm Scot Pollard 31. That's one T. Scott with one T. Pollard 31. Pollard. And then on Instagram, I'm Scott P31. Again, one T. That's my name. On Facebook, you can follow me, but I'm not real funny on there. I use it mostly for business now and real estate posts. Once in a while, some family stuff, but I'm on Facebook. It's really me. And then, I don't really do the other social medias, and I'm always considering maybe not doing social media at all. So
that's fair. That's
one day where it's not there.
Come on, we're not going to get Scot Pollard on TikTok yet.
No, I tried TikTok for about a weekend, and then it was way too much effort. I had some friends that were like, "No, you need to get on TikTok. You have 1 million followers this weekend." I was like, after 26 hours and 26 followers and 3 videos, it's like, yeah, I'm just going to stick with Instagram. It's fine. I don't have a big following. I've quit Twitter 3 times and started up a new account. So now I think I'm around 19 or 20,000 followers. I don't care. It's the 3rd time I've tried Twitter and Instagram. I've never really put a whole lot of thought into any of social media because it's not reality. I laugh at people that think that that's reality and they get their political views from social media. I'm like, wow, well, we're in trouble if that's how most of America thinks or most of the world thinks. And I know they don't, so that's what's great.
Cool. Hey, thanks so much, man.
Thank you very much. Anytime.
Man, great stuff there from NBA champion, former Cleveland Cavalier, Scot Pollard. Make sure everybody out there go give him a follow for real. Scot Pollard, only one T in that Scott. Super interesting stuff. So much that we went over from LeBron James, his time in Cleveland, what it was like for him during 2016, the "Hey kids, do drugs" comment. What was most interesting to me, though, was some of the stuff that he said about the NBA bubble and the stuff with Clippers guard Lou Williams. So if you haven't heard the story yet, Lou Williams, who is the guard for the LA Clippers, was spotted at an Atlanta strip club after being given permission to leave the bubble for a funeral. Now, Lou Williams is going to claim that he was just visiting the strip club to get some chicken wings. He was just going in there, picking up his chicken wings, and went right out. Now, I've heard really good things about these chicken wings. Like I said in that Scot Pollard interview, these said wings are actually on DoorDash. So Lou Williams I think he's doing okay enough for himself that he could afford to order some DoorDash to not go in the restaurant. But my opinion on all of this is that the NBA needs to be much more careful, because you literally have an entire, how do I say that? Not just Lou Williams' team. You have an entire operation on your hands, for the lack of a better term. And we've seen with this coronavirus and this COVID-19 pandemic that it's a slippery slope. One guy gets it in just an innocent run for chicken wings in a strip club, comes back to the bubble and doesn't identify like, hey, yo, I wasn't just at that funeral. I was at a strip club where there happened to be strippers and multiple other people in Atlanta, which is a very busy city, but I was just getting chicken wings. Like, that's not going to fly too well. So in a sense, it was such a good thing, in my opinion, that this picture was taken of Lou Williams, and that Jack Harlow, who's a rapper, posted that he was with Lou Williams at the time, or a picture of Lou Williams getting these wings, because this could have been the slipperiest of slopes that could have cost us basketball coming back tomorrow. God forbid Lou comes back, has a practice with the Clippers, or plays, in one of these final scrimmage games that we've seen over the last few weeks. It's a train wreck. It could contaminate everybody. So I'm glad that they caught it, because that could have gotten messy really fast. And I know Scott said, like he said, it couldn't have, probably wouldn't have resulted in any, but that's not a risk that the NBA is looking to run. It's obviously an inherent risk when you're playing a contact sport that you might type of sickness, let alone this coronavirus that is spread so quickly. But at the same time, the NBA, in my opinion, did the right thing, and they got to be smarter. They got to be way smarter with these players. And I hope that once the playoffs start and things start moving a little bit more smoothly, we go through another week of testing with no positive tests, I wouldn't be so quick to, relax some of these rules. I'd be a little bit more hesitant, like, hey, I know it's been going good so far, but let's not let these family and friends and these personal DJs and chefs start to creep in and start to infiltrate this bubble, because that's where things could get messy. And I know for sure the last thing that the NBA and the last thing Adam Silver want to do is to burst this bubble, have to call it off in the middle of the playoffs and not name a champion, because that's the whole reason they came back. The whole reason they came back was to name a champion, and I think they're going to do that, because Adam Silver has kind of been the mastermind of quarantine, of mandating masks, and it's working. Two straight weeks of no positive corona tests. That's super great news. But it's kind of concerning that other sports teams aren't following along, and we're going to get to football in a second. But we've all heard about the Miami Marlins coronavirus outbreak. Their season more or less postponed for the next few weeks as they try to find a way to field a team, as well as make sure that the current don't come back, positive. So they have 16, I believe the number is up to, positive players and personnel from their outbreak. That's obviously all. So the MLB stepped in. And this headline I got in my email really rubbed me the wrong way, and I wanted to read it to you guys and let me know if it rubs you the wrong way, and if you've had any type of encounters like this on your own. You tweet the show, as always, at Pedone My Take, as well as at NickPedone12. Super active on there. I'll be sure to get back to you guys. But this headline I got in my email is so funky. It reads, Marlins outbreak is really bad and exactly what the MLB signed up for. Now, this story proves that to me that you just can't please anybody, because at first people were chomping at the bit to have Major League Baseball back. They were like, well, baseball is the only sport that you could really socially distance, so why don't we have baseball back? And it was the constant butting of heads about the whole, return and the bargaining agreement and the money and the contracts onward and upward. And it all started at the top and everybody was mad at each other. And now that baseball is back, these people want to see the world burn. And it's like, well, sports don't deserve to be back because they couldn't figure out how to do it correctly. And 16 players in Florida who have been, who are out in a nightclub in Atlanta and weren't acting responsibly, were about to ruin it for everybody. Like, I feel so many people on social media this week, especially with this Miami Marlins story, want to see the world burn. And they're like, well, you think football is going to happen? Look what's happened in Miami. Wasn't it funny to you guys that the Miami Marlins is the only organization that this is happening in? The rest of the teams are rocking and rolling. They're going fine. Sure, a coronavirus test here or there, and that's not good. And we also worry about the long-term health effects for those players affected. However, really? We're going to pull the plug on a whole operation that we spent months fighting, scratching, and clawing to get back, as did those players, as did those owners, to negotiate their salaries and how many games were going to be played, what the playoff picture was going to look like, what health and safety protocols were going to be in place. And one team screws up and we're going to pull the plug. And so many people now are finger pointing at the NFL. Like, NFL, what are you going to do? You need a bubble too. So bubbles to me are like a group project. And the more people that are involved, the harder it is to get stuff done. And I know everybody's been involved in a group project at some point in life. Whether you were in middle school, in your music class like me, or you're in high school, or you're at a corporate office job trying to get a project done. You've been a part of a team project, and it's hard. The more people that get in so badly when group projects are just assigned. So the NBA, it's a little bit easier because you're dealing with only a small handful of teams that still had an active fighting chance to make the playoffs and are going to be sent home in the next couple of weeks here before the playoffs begin. And those teams are only comprised of 12 players, a handful of personnel, and that's it. Major League Baseball, much different. You got 11 guys on the field at one time. You got how many ever pitchers and backup catchers and bullpen guys and assistant managers that sit in that dugout. It'd be a lot harder to do a baseball bubble. You'd need not only a lot bigger of an area, which I don't know that something like that would even exist for baseball, with a bunch of baseball fields pointing in a bunch of different directions, outside or inside or however you want to do that. But then you got to get all these people to buy into this idea. And mind you, when the NBA started their bubble, people were cracking up about it. They were like, oh yeah, right. Good luck to you getting these millionaires and billionaires to buy into being away from their family for, how many ever undisclosed amount of months that their team could still be competing, just to play a game, just to get a paycheck. Good luck with that. Yeah, well, now it's working. So at Major League Baseball didn't want to have a bubble. That wasn't in any type of the discussion for them. And same with football, because the bubble idea was scoffed at the beginning. So while it's a bad sign that there isn't already an outbreak, let's flip the coin and be glad that Major League Baseball stepped in when they did and said, hey, Miami Marlins, we got to chill out with you, man. You guys aren't playing games for a little bit. Hey, Yankees and Phillies, you guys might have been exposed. You guys got to take a little bit of a break too. I don't get why people are so quick to throw the MLB under the bus when in reality they caught the problem from developing into a much bigger problem. I think that leads me into my final take, man. This episode could be renamed the Bubble episode, and I know that this has been super fast. I feel like I haven't hardly talked at all because Scot Pollard was so good. Again, if you haven't checked that out, if you're tuning into the live recording of this late, it'll be up on my Twitter at NickPedone12, as well as the show Twitter at Pedone My Take, as well as we're up on Spotify too. Just go ahead and search Pedone My Take on Spotify. Working on that Apple Podcast game too. 32 minutes of Scot Pollard. He said some great stuff. But other than that, man, it's been me talking about hot chicken wings in the bubble. I had some good chicken wings today. So my final take of the week, and I think it's a good one. Speaking of the bubble, with the recent Miami Marlins outbreak, I saw a good tweet come across my timeline. Let me pull this up here. From Tim Moody. The tweet is originally from Tim Moody, who had a really unique idea into a bubble. Now, I know what you're thinking, and I know I just kind of contradicted myself here in the last segment of saying it's so hard to get these guys to buy in to a bubble type atmosphere, be separated from their families. And football, it's going to be the hardest. Let's get that out of the way right now and right here. It is going to be the hardest for the National Football League to get 53 guys on each one of their teams, plus entire coaching, medical, and every other type of staff under the sun, to buy into the idea of packing their bags and moving to a bubble. That's going to be a very hard task. That's why it has not been, seriously discussed yet that we know of, and that's why they want to kind of do their own thing and let the teams play in their own cities and just hope. Well, as we're seeing, that's going to be pretty hard to pull off with the Miami Marlins COVID outbreak. And hopefully no more than that. But we know this. We know the bubble idea is working. As much as it's scoffed on, it's working in hockey. I didn't even mention hockey. I didn't even mention the WNBA. And, of course, knock on wood, if everything goes according to plan, we're going to have basketball on Thursday. But if you want to minimize the risk of exposure in football, the way to go about it is the good old-fashioned Midwest quarantine. Now, I know what you're thinking, Nick. No way are these players going to come in Ohio. Well, you pitch it like this. You go to Ohio, you're going to have a really much smaller chance of catching coronavirus. And I know that's the biggest thing on a lot of people's minds right now. We've seen that with all the opt-outs this week. Obviously, the big ones, Patrick Chung, as well as Dante Hightower over there in the New England with the Patriots. Say what you want about them wanting to tank or whatever. That's another conversation for another day. But in my opinion, you pitch it to them like this. Look, you want to be the safest? You want to reduce the risk? You want to slow the spread? Come on down to the Midwest where there's not that much going on and play your football season here. So you play your games on Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. Right now here in the great state of Ohio, high school football is not looking too optimistic, at least as of today, as of Wednesday. They canceled the scrimmages for high school football, high school athletics. Obviously, it's a lot harder to keep high schoolers in a bubble than it would be professional athletes that are paid. I feel like that's kind of common sense. So you play games Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. And bring back the NFL with a bang. The NFL is going to own the weekend. Yeah, I know that the NBA finals are going to be here and the NBA playoffs are going to be ramping up. Really, who knows? All the big names. Look in back here in the East, you got the Raptors. Could they defend their title? The Miami Heat are such a fun, exciting team to watch. But we're the NFL. We're looking to own the weekends. MLB, no way. Playoffs, World Series, yeah, your guys' 60 games were cute. We hope you had fun. We're the NFL. We're going to own the weekends. Jersey sales through the roof. Obviously, viewership through the America. It's the true pastime of this country now. We know that. So you pitch it that way. There's at least 8 to 10 viable stadiums within a 4-hour drive. And this is the biggest thing, right? Because it's not like a close, secluded bubble of 3 hotels like we're seeing in the NBA, whereas it's more of a remote hotspot of location. I know we've heard hotspot, that term been thrown around so much with the coronavirus, but you can do football hotspots. Obviously, you have a hotspot in Cleveland. You have a hotspot in Cincinnati where there's teams, but you could also throw hotspots in Akron with InfoCision Stadium, in OU in Athens, which I know Corona's really bad there right now, but hopefully they could work through this. At Benson Stadium. You got Massillon. You got the Glass Bowl in Toledo. We haven't even mentioned the Horseshoe in Columbus. These are all big cities, not huge cities like LA, Chicago, New York, Miami, but these are big enough cities to accommodate NFL players with hotels, dining, and everything that they would need to stay in Ohio. I think we're onto something here. Last season, we celebrated, everybody knows, the 100th anniversary of football. They're celebrating that game of I forget what it is, some anniversary of Monday Night Football with the Browns and Jets this year. So the birthplace of the NFL, there's no better place for this to take place than in the state of Ohio. And really, it boils down to that 4-hour drive with all the, stadiums. I mentioned Massillon, but there's also a lot of other state-of-the-art type stadiums. You got the Hall of Fame Stadium. I think I'm on to something here. You could host the whole season if these guys truly wanted things to be safest for their family, and their families could come too. Like I said, these, for the most part, Columbus, Toledo, Athens, these are big cities. There's hotels in these cities. There's hotels in suburbia of these cities. You think of Cleveland, right, where this show is produced every week in the Big Play studio, as well as the rest of the shows that we have here on the network with Big Play Reflog, moving the chains and stuff like that. You got hotels in Independence. You have hotels in, Brecksville and surrounding areas where you could easily just teams in. It'll never happen. It'll never be considered, but it should be. I like my bubble idea. I hope you guys do too. Tweet me, as always, at NickPedone12. Tweet the show at Pedone My Take. Hey, everybody, thanks for hanging out with me. What a fun hour. Huge thank you. Huge Huge shout out to Scot Pollard, man. Great stuff from him. Everything from his career with LeBron to the NBA returning to action Thursday. We're going to have another jam-packed show for you on Wednesday. The NBA will be back. We'll have NBA basketball to talk about. Obviously, the MLB is back. We'll have stuff to talk about with that as well. So make sure to give me a follow at NickPedone12, at Pedone My Take on Spotify. Just pull it up on your phone, pull it up on your tablet, however you listen to your podcast, and search Pedone My Take. Hit that subscribe button, and that way you're sure to never miss an episode. Take on bigplay.com. Thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks for hanging out. Super fun. We'll see you right